on your radio, online and on the ABC Listen app. This is ABC Far North.
Most of us tie our self-identity to the roles that we play and the labels we give ourselves. That might be mother, wife, maybe even our job title. And so it can be hard when the role we identify with changes. Award-winning author and former ABC journalist Kirsty Nancarrow has gone through an enormous life change and managed to reinvent herself while also rediscovering who she is and finding a way forward. She's going to be talking about this on Tuesday evening as part of the Rotary E-Club of Empowering Women and Girls. She joins me now to explain how the event came about.
The club has been around since International Women's Day 2025, and it's one of a few clubs that actually have a specific purpose. We have a few Rotary clubs that are dedicated to a specific purpose, and our club is the Rotary Club of Empowering Women and Girls, and it's an E-club. So that means we don't have a physical venue, a physical place that we meet as most Rotary clubs do, either weekly or fortnightly, which was always a bit of a barrier for me to join because of the weekly commitment. So it's really about finding projects to lift up women and girls. So whether it's young girls looking towards their future careers or girls in other countries that may not have access to education. So one of the first projects that the club has undertaken has been to sponsor 20 girls in Timor-Leste to complete their education. That's been the initial founding project of the club. So we've been doing some fundraising around that. And our club has members in Cairns. Our incoming president, Suzanne Rath, is from Cairns, and so am I. And we have members in Hervey Bay, Mackay and Timor-Leste, but our goal is to grow. And it's not just a club for women, it's a club for men, anyone who supports the cause of empowering women and girls.
Well, let's talk about what your focus is going to be when you chat, because you're looking at it from the angle of people go through life changes. There's a whole host of things, whether it's a big crisis or a small crisis, and sometimes people can get a bit lost, lose their identity, and really not know the way forward. Tell me about your experience and why this is such an important topic for you.
So it's called Writing the Next Chapter, and it's not at all about writing a book. It's about, as you say, starting again. And we often attach so much of our identity to the job that we do. Or another role that we have might be motherhood, it might be our marriage, it might be our activity as an athlete. Whatever it might be, we do end up attaching a lot of meaning and stock and identity to that role. And for me, it was the ABC. You know, it's all I ever wanted to do. Since I was 9 years old, I wanted to be a journalist, and the goal was always the ABC. And I finally made that happen in 1999, and I was working here at ABC Far North since 2010. But you were here when I started the downward slide, Amanda, and I'm very grateful for the support that you gave me at that time. You may not know it, but the kindness and the understanding and the stepping in when things got hard were incredibly important. I had undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder. I was diagnosed with depression, and at the time I was the chief of staff, and I was responsible for a lot, and I was no good to myself or my family or any of my wonderful colleagues. So that was my crisis point. Sometimes we ignore those signs that are happening from the universe around us, and they start getting louder and louder, and we just put our fingers in our ears and we say we pretend it's not happening, and sometimes it's taken out of your hands, and it certainly was for me in terms of my health. But I didn't know that I would ever work again. I thought that was it for me. I didn't know what the future held. And I think some people get to this point in their life where they have this, whether it's a marriage breakdown or a job loss or a catastrophic accident or a medical diagnosis, where their life takes a completely left turn, and that was mine. So I thought, well, all I ever wanted to do was be a journalist and work at the ABC. It was so attached to my identity, but I just had to stop. And I find myself 10 years down the track, having owned 2 successful businesses, doing what I love, which is now empowering people to tell their stories as a media trainer. I've written a book, which I never saw coming, and I have a much more balanced and happy life. So I've been able to find a new way to do the things that I love that are still attached to writing and storytelling, but just in a way that works better for me. So really this talk is about giving people a bit of perspective and maybe a bit of hope about the fact that even if the thing that you were working towards your whole life, that you've attached so much meaning to, ends, there is another dawn, another day, another life, as they say, and you can feel good.
My guest this morning is Kirsty Nan Caro, who's going to be speaking next week, hopefully bringing hope to those that are also feeling a little lost and needing a little direction or a couple of tips on how they can get themselves out of that slump that they find themselves in. I want to ask you about that tattoo on your arm, which I was asking you about before we came on air. It's got a lot of meaning for you, and it kind of helped you in that transition that you were going through.
That's right. I have never had the desire to have a tattoo on my body, but I do understand that for most people there's generally a meaning behind getting this permanent mark on their body. And for me, I just needed something. I went looking for a symbol that represented if you change nothing, nothing will change. So something that I realised in this process is that no one is coming to save me. No one is coming to make my life better. Of course, having treatment and people reaching out, all of those things are incredibly important, but I needed to make some change in my life. I needed to have some agency in my life. So I kind of did a bit of a search online for a symbol, and this popped up, and it is basically the symbol for breath. It's an Om symbol in the middle, and I printed it out and I carried it in my purse for a couple of years, probably summoning the courage to make it permanent. I had a friend actually do it in henna on my arm first, so I could get used to the idea. And at the ripe old age of, I think it was 42, I decided, before going to Nepal the second time to do Everest Base Camp, I decided, right, it's time. And I got this tattoo on my arm, and it's facing me. But it is my daily reminder, if I need it, that if I don't like something, if something is not working for me, then I have the power to change that. And if you're in the weeds, it's not always possible to make a big change. So you can make one small change that will maybe set in motion the rest of the changes that need to happen for you to shift yourself out of wherever you are, whether it's a mindset or whatever. But I do believe that we can get ourselves out of where we are just by making a small step. But it is up to us. It's not up to anyone else.
Do you have a tip or two that you would like to give to people that maybe are feeling a little lost and needing a bit of inspiration to find themselves and find the way forward?
I would say give yourself time. We're in a rush in this day and age all the time. We're constantly stimulated by things. There's pressure from every angle about what we should be doing and what we should look like and the job we should have, the perfect family. And I mean, I don't know about you, but my Facebook feed is constantly filled with products for menopausal women. And so, we're getting all this pressure. Honestly, just give yourself a bit of time out. Switch off from technology. I personally needed to sleep. And then one of the hardest things is actually to re-engage. I was a very social person and I switched all of that off. I withdrew and I didn't want to leave the house. But I had this beautiful doggy, Billy, who's no longer with us, and she had needs still. It was having her there, the motivation I got from needing to take her for a walk every day, that got me out of the house. And just walking out the door with her, I didn't have to make any arrangements. I could just get out of my house, walk down the street, walk to a park, and suddenly I'm in a different environment with beautiful trees and flowers and having interactions with other people with dogs. And it does help. Like it's that first little step that gets you out of your head, gets you out of your house, and then helps you start re-engaging and perhaps seeing things from a different perspective than you've been in. And the other one was volunteering. I went to volunteer at the Cairns Turtle Rehabilitation Centre because I didn't think I was any use to anyone, but actually going and doing something selfless for a community or an animal, you do find that you actually do have something useful to give.